Holy smokes, what is happening to AMD stock? It's up by more than 7% in just one day. So let's look at this. As you can see right here, the stock is up by more than 7% in just one day, which has kept investors wondering what is happening to AMD stock right now. This is what we're going to be talking in today's video. Please make sure you smash the like button because it really helps grow the channel larger. So let's begin. First of all, let's look at the charts at what's happening, and then we're going to dig deep why this happened and how this would affect the valuation of the company and the financials of the company. So first of all, let's look at the indexes overall. As you can see, AMD is up 7%. Intel stock is up by almost 7% as well. Nvidia is up by almost 2%, as you can see right here. And then Qualcomm is up by 1.3%. So what is happening overall? The stock market, and especially this index, is really up by a couple of percentage. So what is really happening? So to cut to the chase, the bottom of the line is the idea is a major catalyst appears to be reports indicating that both AMD and Intel are planning to increase prices for all series of CPUs starting in March and April of 2026. So this is what is happening. This is the major news that kind of broke today on Wednesday, and this is why the stock is up by a significant 7%. So this comes amidst a shortage of CPUs fueled by rising demand for AI usage in data centers, suggesting strong pricing power for AMD. So basically what is happening is many people and many companies are really purchasing more CPUs, because you're going to purchase more CPUs, so more revenue and more product sales. And because there is more demand with the same supply, what happens to the price? The price goes up. If the price goes up, the revenue goes up, the profits go up, and the profit margins also improve. So this is like a triple whammy for AMD stock, and this is what is mainly happening. So if we go back to the slides that I prepared right here, so before we dig any deeper, let's look at the chart right here. Okay, so let's zoom in back again, just out one a bit. So as you can see right here, this is in 2021 all the way into 2025, the revenue of AMD over time. And as you can see, this one right here, this represents the data center segment of AMD. And as you can see, it is going up in the right direction all the way from 2021 all the way into 2025. And the overall revenue trend for AMD is going in the right direction, reaching almost 15 to 16 billion in 2025. Now, as you can see, unfortunately, the embedded segment, which is this segment right here, although it increased from 2021 to 2022, unfortunately after that it kind of started tapering down and declining over time. What happens to this segment is to be seen. However, the focus right now of today's episode and overall the market is really on the data center segment, because the idea is the data center segment is really what is competing with Nvidia and these other companies, and these are driving the higher profit margins and the significant growth that is coming ahead. And that is why mainly the stock is really going up over the past 1 or 2 years. So as you can see right here, data center revenue has a compounded annual growth rate of 45% over the past 5 years for AMD stock, with an overall revenue CAGR of 20%. So this is really what is happening to the revenues of the company overall. And as we just saw, there is an increase in the demand of the CPUs for AMD and Intel, and that's why these two stocks are up. And this would increase the revenue, profits, and margins, which would really boost the overall share price for the company. Now, AMD currently operates at a 48% of its target scale relative to its ambitions. And then later on, as we know, the launch of MI450 series aims to significantly boost market share. So basically, MI450, for those who do not know, is really coming up in the next couple of months, and this would really be the game changer GPU that would be for AMD, which would drive significant revenue growth, which would lead to these profits and realization of these higher profit margins, which would lead to the reasoning behind the increase in the share price of AMD stock over the past couple of months. And this would be the reason why we're expecting AMD is really going up in the right direction. We've got partnerships with OpenAI and Meta platforms, which we're going to be discussing in just a moment. However, if we go back to the news right here, so this is fxleaderswebsite.com. Now, as you can see, I will be scrolling down right here. So Okay, so the move, as you can see right here, which is highlighted in yellow, the move reflects renewed investor confidence after a brief pullback driven by a broader market weakness and geopolitical concerns, which was happening over the last couple of days. However, a key driver behind the sector's strength, the sector overall, as we saw, with Intel up by 7%, AMD up by almost 7% as well. So a key driver behind the sector's strength is the intensifying global shortage of CPUs. Both Intel and AMD's have reportedly informed customers of upcoming price increase. And guys, again, please focus on the price increase, because as I said, if there is more demand with the same supply, what happens to the price? It goes up. If the price goes up, the profit margins increase in a very nice way across their CPU product lines, with hikes ranging from 10 to 15%. So you can expect profit margins to increase in a similar kind of manner, maybe just slightly less. And in some cases even higher in some CPU product lines. Now, if we dig deeper on the news, you can see that the company's ability to capitalize on AI-driven demand is becoming a central pillar of its investment case, particularly as enterprises ramp spending in advanced computing systems. So basically, the idea and the thesis behind investing in AMD stock is that, there is a rise and a ramp up in spending in these advanced computing systems, which really requires these advanced GPUs and also these CPUs, and that is why these CPUs prices are increasing by 10 to 15%. Now, if we go on, there is also this Samsung partnership that strengthens the supply chain. There is an expanding partnership with Samsung Electronics. Basically, what is happening is Samsung will supply high bandwidth memory, which is basically HBM4, for AMD's MI455, which is the next gen or the next version of MI450 accelerators, which are designed for enterprise data centers. So, of course, this is not for you and I, these regular end customers. However, it is for enterprises like, for example, Meta, OpenAI, Microsoft, and these other companies. So additionally, you have DDR5 memory will be provided for AMD's Helios rack scale solutions, and then combining next gen accelerators with Venice CPU architecture. So this is really a really nice move with Samsung for AMD. Now, additionally, if you go on, it says the agreement also opens the door to a potential foundry partnership between potentially AMD and Samsung, signaling a deeper strategic alignment that could enhance AMD's manufacturing capabilities and long-term competitiveness. Of course, now, if you have a foundry partnership, so this really means that AMD will have more of its employees kind of practicing on this particular business, and then this would drive more revenue and kind of a wider business and a wider moat for the company. Now, there is an additional thing, these three additional parts. So AMD also benefited from a favorable regulatory shift in the United States, where policymakers kind of withdrew a proposed rule that would have restricted exports of advanced AI chips. Now, we all know this issue between Trump, the US government, and China. So kind of there are some policymakers within the US that are helping to withdraw the proposed rule that would have restricted exports of advanced AI chips into China. And into other countries. So this is kind of a general statement, not just specifically in China, but overall other countries. So this would remove a key uncertainty and supports AMD global growth ambitions. If you guys have seen AMD's Q4 and Q3 2025 earnings calls, you can see within the analyst questions, many questions were coming into what would be happening to AMD's exports outside of the US and particularly in China. And this is one of the things that kind of was worrying investors. However, given this withdrawing the proposed rule that would have restricted exports, this is a very nice contribution that would say that, maybe some things are easing between the US and China. This could be related to the current war. However, it remains to be seen over time. However, this is one thing that is driving the stock higher, over 7% in today's trading time. So if we go back, you also have this collaboration with Celestica, which aims to develop Helios rack scale AI platform solutions designed for large scale computing clusters. So as we all know, Celestica will contribute networking infrastructure complementing AMD's processing power. And on top of all of that, we can see that institutional interest is also rising, especially within AMD, such as firms like Aquatic Capital Management, which is building positions in the stock. And all of these different things, 1, 2, 3, and 4, are all kind of pushing the stock higher, and that's why the stock is up by more than 7%. However, is this the end of the bull case for AMD? Now you can revisit some of the videos that we have talked about in our previous episodes, and the idea is, in my personal opinion, AMD is headed towards between 600 to 1000 US dollars per share by the end of 2030, maybe give or take, but this is the main base cases in my personal opinion. Of course, I have made some bull thesis and a bear thesis. However, this is the general the general idea of what I believe is happening. Now, there is Nvidia's unmatched growth versus AMD's catch-up opportunity. Now, we all know that Nvidia is still the leader and will remain to be the leader for the foreseeable future. However, will AMD be able to catch up with some share of this and really kind of reap this opportunity? Now, we know that AMD and Nvidia's 5-year revenue growth has been 75%, 114%, 125%, and then 0.2% in that particular year, and then back up to 61%. Now, we know Nvidia's market cap is $4 trillion, which is the world's largest public company in all of the world. Now, AMD is only 330 billion, which is less than 10% of Nvidia's market cap. And also, for the revenues, AMD is less than 10% actually of Nvidia's data center revenue. So AMD is 16 billion, Nvidia is 193 billion dollars. So as you can see, this is less than 10% of Nvidia's data centers and less than 10% of Nvidia's market share or market cap. So time will tell how this will kind of unfold. However, Nvidia's Q4 revenue breakdown is data centers making up 89%, with gaming segment 7%, and unfortunately, ProViz is making up only 1.5%, and very unfortunately, autonomous and robotic solutions only make up almost 1%. In my mind, I thought this would be, back into 2020. I was kind of forecasting automotive and robotics segment to make up more than that, maybe 5 to 7%. However, this is really interesting anyway. They have made up for that because of the data center growth that I wasn't really forecasting as much as this one, $193 billion back at that time. And then you also have OEMs and other businesses that they have make up only 0.3%, which is really, really marginal. Now, this is kind of broken down on the other side right here. Now, if we go back, guys, really, if you enjoy this type of videos, please let me know in the comments down below and support me by smashing this like button, because it really helps grow the channel larger, as it is really stagnating at this particular point. Now, if we go back to partnerships with OpenAI and Meta, with AMD is really marking an early stage validation for AMD's new GPUs, including MI450 and the newer version of MI455, which we were talking about just a moment ago. Now, would this signal the start of MI450 driven growth cycle? This is really possible, and enterprises are seeking supplier diversification, reducing reliance on Nvidia. This is a key point right here that I wanted to highlight. Now, if you are Microsoft, or if you are Apple, or if you are whatever enterprise that is, kind of relying so heavily on data centers, you're purchasing most of your data center equipment coming all from Nvidia. Now, if you're kind of relying on only one customer, one supplier, which is Nvidia, this is a very tough solution and a tough situation for you as a company and as an enterprise, because if, let's say, Nvidia, they are the only supplier, they can increase the prices as much as they want. However, if you have a competitor like Nvidia, like AMD and Nvidia, well, you as Microsoft, for example, you are able to purchase from Nvidia or AMD, and this would lead to higher kind of improvement and higher utilization for these different mindsets that people have, and higher return on R&D, and of course this would lead to lower prices and more innovation within this particular area. Now, if we go back to AMD's presence may act as a strategic hedge, naturally increasing demand, which we just talked about a moment ago. a key debate is this a multiplayer market opportunity, or will AI infrastructure remain a winner takes the most market dominated by Nvidia? This would be the key question. Now, one last thing that I wanted to highlight here before I move forward is, and we end up unwrap this video, is if we look back at OpenAI partnership and Meta's partnership, okay? So, excuse me for that, I will be zooming in right here. So OpenAI and Meta platform, so total capacity is 6 gigawatts for both. You have an estimated deal value of around $100 billion, mostly on MI450 series, and then this is over the next 5 years, coming by the end or by the second half of 2026, which is exactly this year. This would lead to, of course, an increase in the revenues and profits and profit margins. However, unfortunately, there is a stock target that is with tiered targets of $600 per share that could warrant 160 million share warrants of up to 10% of the stock. So let's see if this is a nice way that AMD is kind of dealing with these other enterprises like Meta and OpenAI, and I will see you in our next video. However, if you like this type of video, guys, please make sure that you tell me in the comments down below so that I make more of that content for all of you, and I'll see you in our next video.